Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it. So explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it. No scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool. Hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones. Bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on UCY. Thank you guys for tuning in and joining us here on Monday night, December the 29th. Make sure you check out UCY and all the other awesome hosts that are on this station. All you gotta do is bookmark the website. Come back any time of the day from your phone, from your computer, and you can listen to whoever's live. So it's kind of a radio station alternative to the crap that they play on the local corporate media, FM radio, whatever it is that they play down there. And you can listen to some maybe dissenting voices, whatever it is you want to call it, alternative view of the universe. I mean, I guess that's really, sometimes it seems that way when we talk to people, and people are so entrenched in their own ideas and maybe have a narrow view of the world. But I was talking to a friend today, and that's one thing that is important to keep in mind, is that nobody really knows exactly what it is that everybody has to do, and that's the whole point, is that we don't need to get caught up in these ideologies that are telling other people how they should be, doing anything. So I think it's important just to make a note that people need to try to avoid getting too dogmatic, I guess you could say, and overly hyped up on any singular ideas, because these ideas may or may not be ideas that are like pinch points when it comes to talking to other people. And the whole point is that if we remain a tiny minority when it comes to ideas of freedom and all this kind of stuff, if we remain this tiny minority without being able to build more bridges and talk to other people that may think slightly differently or have a different outlook on the world, on the universe, then we're never going to be able to really get enough stuff done. We're never going to be able to get to this point of critical mass that we really need to reach in order to have a lasting impact. If we're going to try to get rid of tyranny, get rid of fascism, get rid of violence and wars and stuff like that, we're gonna need a lot more people than just the few that are awake now, or whatever you want to call it. So we don't want to get too caught up in anything in particular, I guess you could say. Now, here's a point that we definitely need to talk about. We're going to be joined by DB in a few minutes as well, our co-host. And don't forget to check us out Monday through Friday now on the same time, same channel. And you can hear, we got 5 different hosts that you can hear. and different opinions, and people always calling in. If anybody wants to join the conversation now before I start diving into this news, feel free to join us and we can talk about this new stuff. 718-717-8296. So today, the autopsy of Ezell Ford, which is the young man that was shot by the LAPD, I think 3 to 4 months ago, was finally released, and they've been delaying the release of this autopsy because I think basically they didn't want it to overlap with the stuff that was already going on in LA over Eric Garner, and already protests going on for Ezell Ford, Mike Brown, and all this stuff was like compounding, more or less, I guess you could say. And this is why they probably kept delaying this autopsy. Anyway, it was finally released today, and this young guy was shot in the back at least one time, like execution style, like the witnesses were saying. And the family of Ezell Ford was calling for a protest to start gathering earlier today. And if you guys are interested, I'm sure you could find some live stream video of what's going on right now in LA. But I know it's been going on for so long. I mean, some of our people, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Alyssa Calkins. She helps work with us on the Anti-Media, and she's an LA-based activist and journalist. And she was telling me that they've been protesting like every single day for months and months and months. So it seems like this stuff just doesn't stop. It just keeps happening over and over. But I'm pretty confident that these cops are starting to realize that they're crossing the line. They're starting to second guess their actions. They're starting to not want to kill people. Now, another guy was just shot in Berkeley, Missouri last week, which is right by Ferguson. And of course, it started inflaming tensions again. But I think that these protests have had a definite lasting impact already, and obviously they're still ongoing. But they've had a huge impact already because we're getting into the heads of these officers and in their decision-making processes. So when you start affecting the decision-making process within the cops because of all these protests, then we're going to wind up with A, more whistleblowers, which we're already starting to see, and B, we're going to end up with less cops shooting people, ideally. But now the interesting dynamic that I'm starting to see develop, and I think I'm joined on the line by DB Schwartz now. But one of the interesting things that I'm starting to see with the NYPD is that these guys are really turning their, physically and metaphorically turning their backs on the mayor. And I know this story is all hyped up because who cares? It's the mayor and then it's the cops against the mayor. They're all part of the same government. But still, what we're seeing is that there quite possibly could be how the Free Thought Project put it as like a blue coup, where the cops apparently back in '92 when someone tried to put like a civilian oversight committee on the NYPD, the cops basically rioted back in '92. So I think what's scary is that the NYPD, especially because they're so huge. I mean, how many cops do they have? Like 35,000 or 85, some crazy number. I mean, this is a huge force, man. This is a standing army. This is the biggest gang in the world. So if these guys really wanted to, I mean, the cops could throw a huge wrench in the system of New York for sure. And that to me has been something that we've been following that's been pretty interesting.
Yeah, and all the protesters need to do is basically jam up transport, which would pretty much halter the entire East Coast commercial economy. I mean, so the cops know, the cops are going to try to basically get everything in place for them to have zero accountability. They want to now become private corporation like SWAT, and I think that's something we'll get into later, right?
Yeah, man, definitely.
And the problem with that is if you're a private corporation, you get no public funding. So, with the SWAT announcing today they're a private corporation, they need to get their public funding cut immediately.
Yeah, that's something I did want to bring up here, definitely, while we're on the subject of this police stuff. So the Ezell Ford thing is pretty big. It's actually making headline news. It wasn't when it first happened, but now it is. So that's kind of a good thing. It's horrible that this had to happen, but at least
3 shots in the back.
Well, he was shot 3 times, at least once in the back, and it seemed like it was at very close range, so it was like execution style.
Right.
And we got to also keep in mind that this guy also had mental illness too. I don't know exactly what he had, but he had some mental illness, and so this also relates back to the fact that the mentally ill are killed by cops at a higher rate than anybody else. Is a point that needs to be made as well. So this is kind of it kind of rings of this Nazi-esque type of extermination type of stuff where they're targeting these poor guys that have some kind of mental drawback or whatever, and these guys are getting killed more by the cops. I mean, it's a horrifying statistic, but it's right there. And
right.
It's very, very chilling to hear that kind of stuff. But, I mean, this is what's happening all over the country.
I mean, it's going to be simple. Like, yeah, it's only affecting microcosm right now of poor, mostly minority communities. And, of course, there's not really too many movers and shakers in those communities that can get things done on a massive level. But, I mean, it's got to ring alarm bells for anybody to think that who they thought they were paying with their tax dollars actually is a private corporation. I mean, the IRS is too. Everything is. Every ABC alphabet is all private corporations, yet they're all suckling off the public teat, and they can't, not by law. Not under any law of any country in the world can private corporations be paid outright with tax money. So we're in a not a massive conflict of interest, but this is institutionalized corruption. This is where people are going to understand very soon that the United States is actually a corporation, not a country. It's been set up that way. We're all vassals to that corporation. That's why you have, serial numbers on the bottom of your birth certificate. They're trading your labor as a derivative, and they've been doing it since day one. So when people start to realize that we have a president of a corporation, not a president of a country, I think they're going to kind of start waking up to realize that basically we're paying the highest tax rate on earth. We're getting inflated salaries because we have a printing press paying us. And once the printing press stops and we get knocked back down to earth of what we're really worth in the world market with all these taxes thrown on top of it, I mean, it's no wonder they're militarizing the police.
Yeah, and ever since these countries started trading debts, ever since we started selling our debt to China and stuff like that, and long before that, I mean, they were doing that in the colonial years back in the 1700s, probably longer back than that. But what they're doing is they're basically saying, okay, well, I'm hedging my bet that your corporation, which is the United States, is going to have a bunch of taxpayers that are going to pay a bunch of taxes. Therefore, I'm willing to buy your debt, in the confidence that you're going to pay me back through conscripted taxes through your population, and by taking all the money from them and giving it back to us. And so, in a way, just like you said, it's so horrible to think about it this way. It's a corporation. And the profits are guaranteed through us, through taxes, conscripted taxes,
right,
like mandatory taxes, stuff that you get thrown in prison.
We're no longer needed.
Pay it.
Yeah, and the craziest thing is until we're no longer needed. And that sets us up for things like Obamacare, which in all real practical terms does have death penalties, because you will be denied if your economic impact is no longer there. If you're 80 years old and you need some kind of surgery to save your life, denied. And it's going to be like that because they're not going to be hiding in the shadows anymore. They actually feel that, people basically are so apathetic that they're going to take it. They're going to accept what they're going to bring out and say, listen, this is how it's been set up since 1871. We control it all. We have drones in the skies now. What are you going to do about it? Pay your taxes. That's what they're setting up.
Yeah, and it's kind of a scary prospect as far as the whole death penalty thing, because in theory it's just for like extremely old people that are it's not worth saving them, and they're on the how they say that they're just going to pull the plug on people that are in comas or whatever, that are been in comas for years. But it's a sliding, it's a slippery slope that we can get on, And I mean, where does it end? Is the question. And who knows? In the future, when we get into these more Orwellian-style futures where resources are extremely scarce and everything is controlled, I mean, Brave New World type stuff. I mean, hopefully it doesn't get that way, but if it does, you could start seeing where if you had some kind of sickness and you're a drag on the economy, you're not that efficient of a worker or whatever. Where I mean, eventually it could slide into that place where if you got sick, they might say, okay, sorry, buddy, but we're not going to fix you up this time. And I mean, it is a slippery slope, and we need to really think, dig down deep and decide, are we going to actually do that? Because I see these cases all the time where, in fact, there was one today that was big. It was this woman, I think it was in Ireland, where she was pregnant, right? But she was on she was on life support. And she wasn't conscious or anything like that, and the court ruled today that they can pull the plug on her, and so that was kind of to me, it's kind of really pushing the boundaries, because it's tough when somebody, there's a person there but they're not cognitive. Who's to say who they get to live or die? I mean, for me, it's a really tough decision. Because what if those they could be brought back to life and make the decision for themselves? I mean,
and what happens to the child?
And then the craziest part is that once they are cognitive and then they decide, I don't want to live anymore, that's illegal. You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell's going on? The whole system is messed up. It's all backwards. That's why Dr. Kevorkian got into all that trouble, because he was helping people. He was getting a huge chunk of money from these people, but what he was doing was helping them commit suicide. And to me, it's like, well, someone can say, okay, just pull the guy's plug, but then if the guy comes back to life and says, I want you to pull my plug, then you can't do that. I mean, that's crazy.
See, I'm not as worried about that, because those are so extreme cases. For every Terry Schiavo that there's going to be now 175-year-old grannies, $1,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 surgery, and they're literally going to put it up there like, shoot, taking out of the system, we're not going to pay for that. And Medi-Cal will pay up to 80%, and she's going to have to come up with the other 20%, and that's even if it's approved. And that'll bankrupt her, and then she'll forfeit all her Social Security. You see where this game is going to end? I mean, do people that are between, 25 and 65 want to have to work until they're 90 to be taking care of their 110-year-old grandma or mother or father? I mean, lifespans are shrinking, but they're not shrinking that quickly. So, I don't know what to say. It's got to be brought back to a republic in every way, shape, and form. The reason why these things are happening now is because it's corporations run amok. It's a corporatocracy. It's by and large an oligarchy, but it is a corporatocracy for all the people's eyes. Really know what's going on. Know that a guy like Soros is more powerful than any company. But until people get that, until they make that correlation, until they understand that now when you make everything for profit, healthcare, food, housing, water now, I don't know if you saw this, but Christie signed a law that's going to allow privatization of water without any vote. That's patently unconstitutional. The guy should be recalled immediately, and anybody that signed that bill should be out of a job in public office. It's a conflict of interest. Is New Jersey going to take it sitting down? I don't know. But this is where it starts, man. When you start to privatize and corporatize things that you need to live, the poor will die.
I think we're already seeing that, a lot of that anyway, all over the place, and it's not what a libertarian type of person would really agree with as far as privatization, because we're talking about where you basically tax the hell out of people, buy a bunch of stuff buy a bunch of infrastructure with tax money, and then you sell it to your buddy that's got a corporation that is able to privatize all the profits. Meanwhile, the people are subsidizing all the costs. And that's basically, in many occasions, that's how the NFL works, man. The NFL works in that same way, where they force the city to pay for the stadiums, and then obviously the owners of the teams make a shitload of money. The players themselves make a shitload of money, and then somehow they're nonprofit, so they don't really pay that many taxes. And then And then they privatize all the profits, man. All those guys make
Right.
a lot of money, but we're the ones that have to pay for them to put up their stadiums and all that stuff. It just doesn't make any sense.
They're a small part of the problem because that's entertainment. And if tomorrow the NFL didn't exist, yeah, I know a lot of people's lives would be diminished, but is it going to ruin the world? No. What I have a problem with is water rate. Eventually, infrastructure problems. But guess how that's going to be paid? Well, they're going to jack your rates up to quadruple what they used to be. Is there a way to get around that for people that even have moderate incomes? No. There's no way to get around that. We're dependent on these services. These services should be, by law, municipal. Like, they should never, ever be even allowed to be privatized, period. Ever. If it's something to do with life-giving, hospitals, roads, my roads, emergency services, those kind of things, all the things that you need to actually live, then they can't be privatized, because what would that do but only increase costs? And it's like you say before, a slippery slope that never ends.
Well, yeah, I think you need like a third way of doing it, because the municipal way isn't working out either, but at the same time, making everyone pay for it and then privatizing it doesn't work either. So I think, especially things like that, like you're saying, especially like food, electricity, water, things like that, and in many ways housing, should be like cooperative style businesses that take care of everybody in the community and stuff like that, because the way of doing it now with the government and then the way that they're doing it with privatization, I mean, none of it really works out. It only works out in either occasion. It works out for a handful of people, and then it screws a lot of other people. I think we're joined on the call now by Manny. What's going on, Manny?
How's it going, Manny?
Hey, what's up, Rick? Nick and DD. I thought it was a pre-recorded show. I'm glad it's live.
How's it going, man?
Well, it's, I was kind of wondering what happened Wednesday, and then I realized, it's a holiday, so they probably took a little vacation and stuff like that, But there's a lot of things going on in Mexico, and I've been listening to you guys, and I think that when you start putting people, under the gun, people will start reacting really, really defending themselves. Like, right now, a lot of people in Mexico feel like they have nothing to lose. They're fighting these politicians over water now. They haven't had water in 10 days. They got cut off, and you just can't have that. And then you got moms right now. Women are arming themselves down there because, especially the 43, normalistas that were killed, those mothers feel that they got nothing more to lose, so they're willing to die for justice. And I'm to the point that I understand where they're from, because I'm in the same, position that I've always said. I'm willing to die for justice, and stuff like that. And so, and I'm tired of what the politicians are doing. I'm so damn tired. I'm going to be in San Diego on January the 10th, and hopefully, Nick, you'll be out there, because we're going to be marching right there by the border against,
Manny,
go ahead.
Manny, could I ask you, did they privatize the water? Is that why it's being able to be shut off? They're using it as a weapon?
Yeah, exactly, DB. I'm glad you caught up after that. They're exactly right. You just can't do that, because, you see, water is a human right, and I've always said that. That's why, Detroit really ticked me off, because I said, wait a minute, why are you guys squeezing people so? I mean, you can only take so much blood from a turn, how do you say it? You know what I'm trying to say, I mean, you can only squeeze some people so hard until, after a while, when people get to the point, when you get desperate, you'd be amazed what you do. You would do something you wouldn't want to do, and all of a sudden, I have people right now that are rebelling in Mexico, people that you would never think they would rebel, are rebelling now because they feel like they ain't got nothing to lose. I've been communicating myself with a lot of people via Skype in Acapulco, and they said, Manny, when you ain't got nothing to lose no more, what is there for us to lose but our change? And it's true. Think about it. We've always chanted that, our change. That's all we got. Boom, we're going to be fighting and stuff like that. And so I'm going to be at the border on January the 10th. I'll be there by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to be marching on one side, and the Mexican people, if they can't cross over or they want to march on the other side, they're going to march on the other side. We're going to be able to see each other marching, and that's going to be a beautiful thing and stuff like that, And so, and it's crazy what's happening and stuff like that, I mean, it's crazy what's happening in this country. I never thought I would see the day where now everybody, I mean, how bad it's getting here that I'm starting to see that I've talked to some Latino cops off the record, you know, because I called them in L.A., cops that I actually know. I mean, when a Mexican cop is telling me he might be afraid of being shot just like a black cop by his own fellow officer that happened to be white in this case, you know, because he might think that, you know, he looks like a criminal and he might shoot him, and it's already happened, and you guys know that. I mean, come on, dude. Really?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, because you're black or Latino, you might be a suspect? It doesn't make any sense to me, DD and Nick, you know?
Yeah, man. Can you give us any updates on the Ezell Ford autopsy? Anything going on up there about that?
About what?
About Ezell Ford, and because the autopsy came out today, and I know they had some actions planned up in L.A. and stuff.
Well, yeah, they basically have some actions down, you know, happening down on 65th and Broadway because we're going to hit them hard. And, of course, the LAPD is going to be, you know, we're going to be hitting them hard, too, stuff like that. We're also going to be hitting the Mexican consulate on January the 5th really hard because I don't know if you guys are aware, President Barack Obama is going to be hosting President, you know, Enrique Peña Nieto in the White House on the 6th of January. So we're going to hit the consulate one day before because we want to let the President, you know, Barack Obama know how disgusted we are with all of Mexico, and we want him out, you know. So it's going to be something. LA, it's happening. I mean, you probably guys haven't seen so many protests. I mean, during the holidays, we're having protests during the holidays. Just think about how bad things are. We're marching for protesting on the holidays. Think about that. I mean, you know, one of the things that I'm seeing here in the United States that I've never seen before. You know how happy I am that they haven't taken over an airport, but they've been doing the die-ins at the airport. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, things are stepping up, you know.
Yeah, man. I definitely think you made a good point about, you know, people getting just so desperate, man, and so I think we're starting to see that definitely in Mexico. You got basically all kinds of states on the verge of revolution, and some states are in active rebellion basically right now. But we're starting to see it all over the place here in the U.S., all around the world, where there's people just getting to the breaking point where they're tired of being taken advantage of, and fortunately, a lot of them are young people that are in like the age of action, you know, and that's what it really is. We're in the age of, you know, the able-bodied people that are actually going to be out in the streets doing something, making things happen. They understand, they kind of feel what's going on, you know, and a lot of people are like downtrodden, disenfranchised with the whole system. You
know, one thing that I found was funny was the CIA complaining about not being able to hire any hackers, and that Anonymous is basically out hiring hackers now over all the Fortune 500 combined. They're not paying them. These are just people that know how to do it, and they're going and doing it because, why? Because look what they're uncovering. They're uncovering everything you could ever imagine, man. Pedophile rings, they're uncovering now with the NYPD. I mean, you put yourself on the map, man, and they're going to come crack it, and that's becoming the new war front. Like, it's not going to be a physical war front. It's just, it can't be. I mean, could you imagine 330 million people being accosted by their own government? That could never happen, but they can play PSYOP games on us, but we'll just hack them. And that's what's going on, is we're just hacking into everything.
That's right, DB. It really is. I think that's going to, you know, one of the things that was sad to me when this black cop got shot, you know, just recently by a fellow officer because he thought he looked like a suspect. That really just kind of said, wait a minute, what the hell's going on and stuff like that, you know? So I was also thinking about one thing, DB. I was thinking, is DB moving to Minnesota so he can close down the airport down there, or what's up? Why is he moving to Minnesota?
I don't know. They closed down the Mall of America up here. Now they're trying to put charges against the organizers, but they can't find out who it is because honestly, it was organic. There was no organization, so that's what they have to contend with. That's why I'm not as worried as I was maybe, because I see even out here that people are just like, you know what? The federal government's a rotten piece of shit. And the only thing we can really do about it is kind of control what's going on right here. So with all these Republicans around the cities, what did they do? Re-elected a comedian, a senator. And the dude, I don't know if he's corrupt or what, but, you know, Franken to me seems different. And, like, that's how you can change things. You can change things there at the federal level, but easier, you can just change them here, like at a city level. And if so many cities go their own way, and they're just like, what do we even need this central government for? What are they doing?
Exactly, man, and the central government is so far away from the individual, it's so far away from each person that pays into the taxes, that we have no, I mean, how popular is the IRS? It's probably less popular than having cockroaches in your house. So the thing is that it's so far away that it has to oppress you. I mean, by definition, by existence, it's going to be doing things that you don't like it doing with your money because it's yours. And if anything, you know that at least people if you had let's just say we had a school and the principal was in Washington D.C. and the school took all their orders from Washington D.C. principal. I mean, obviously that school is going to be out of touch with the students, right? So that's the basic symptom of what we're facing is that, you know, there's this handful of people, whether you want to say it's Congress, whether you want to say it's the advisors, whether you want to say it's the banking system. Well, it's at the most it's like 1,000 people. At the least, it's less that are controlling and dictating the policy for basically everybody else. You know, it's almost.
And who's going to follow them when the dollar collapses? I mean, if you go to the bank and your bank's empty, or they took 80% of it because they wanted to pay down their debt, the Fed, what's that going to do to the country? There would be no more Fed. There'd be 100 million man march. I mean, so where do they have left to go? Where's the authority? The authority was the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve's probably foreign owned at this point. Like, what's going on? We don't know.
Good point, Davey.
And, you know, there was this news that was coming out this previous week, and even today I saw some new articles about it. But how China is basically stepping into the World Bank territory, man, and they're starting to become the lender of choice to countries that are outside of the guys that are outside of NATO, like for instance Russia or maybe Ukraine, people like that. If they're looking for some kind of monetary bailout, they may not be looking at the IMF. They may be looking towards China and maybe towards the BRICS nations for their bailout. You know what I mean? So,
and who's to say we don't join BRICS? Who's to say what would happen if the U.S. joined BRICS? What would that mean inside of our own government if the Treasury joined BRICS and cut the Fed out completely, the private company? You can imagine what's probably being, you know, there's probably some secret war going on right now we don't even know about.
Yeah, that's true. So like that. Hey, I got a question about the mayor. Isn't it true that the mayor can fire every cop if he wanted to?
I'm not sure, man. That's a good question, but in the case of NYPD, the fact of the matter is that they're unionized, and if you tried to fire them like that, they would just go on strike probably, and they'd shut down the city. Because back in as late as '92, apparently the cops rioted. At least that's what I was reading today. So you know these guys are like a little standing army, and they know that they got plenty of power. They got a bunch of weapons. They got a bunch of infrastructure, and they've got their own card. And you know what's funny is that these conservative people they hate unions, but then they love the cops, even though the cops are some of the strongest unions in the country. It's pretty funny. These guys are like so confused; they don't know what to think. All they do is whatever Fox News tells them. It's hilarious. But not to say the liberals don't make the same have the same problem. But yeah, man, these cops are so strong because they're all unionized and stuff that there's not much you could do to really get a grab on them besides getting some organic pressure within these departments, man. You know, whistleblowers and stuff like that. If you could, you know, half the battle is going to be for justice. The other half is we're gonna have to battle with the police unions, man. These guys are a formidable organization, and they got weapons, and you know, if you've been watching what's been going on with the police union in New York, these guys have basically declared the streets of New York a war zone. You know, they're not even playing around no more. They're becoming very, very aggressive towards people in New York. You know, and this is kind of scary. I mean, we're almost talking about a police department gone rogue. Not quite yet, but I mean, it could possibly happen. I mean,
that's what the National Guard's for, and you know what? There's probably 35,000 qualified unemployed veterans right now that could step into those idiots' shoes and do a better job and serve the Constitution tomorrow. So I'm not worried about it. They'll be handled if they go rogue, and they'll be handled with extreme prejudice.
That's true.
I think what we got to do is create something like Uber that basically replaces police, man. Something like that, but more transparent, or and community run, obviously. But there's ways that I think in a way we can just innovate out from underneath a lot of these problems. You know what I'm saying? Just like Uber, like getting a taxi like anywhere outside of like a big city for a lot of people. It was really hard. It's tough. You got to try to Google a taxi service. Hope that you're not going to get ripped off. Hope that they're going to be on time. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, here comes Uber and Lyft, and you can just take a taxi anywhere you want to go. These are the ideas that can kind of revolutionize the way things work. And so that's what we need, is something like that to make the police irrelevant. And
after it calls a drone that has a taser on it.
Did you guys see that video about that young man that was at the academy in San Diego, and he had a video on his chief telling him when he was being trained at the academy in San Diego to go ahead and profile, certain people of certain age and certain color and whatever. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, that was interesting, actually. That was like, wow. That's when Suzanne Golding was mayor, actually. That's,
So, yeah, it was a while back, but still, man, I mean, these are the practices that these guys use. These are the tactics that they use. And, I mean, to me, it's like there's a polarization process going on right now where the cops are hardening towards us and we're hardening towards the cops. But I think sooner or later there's bound to be a breakthrough where there's going to be a change of tides, and I really don't think that people are going to decide that cops are good all of a sudden, because cops by default are basically upholding laws, many of which are unjust. So by default they're doing things that aren't very morally in line with what it is people should be doing. But I think that there's a big potential for cops to, defect from the machine, switch sides, like that guy Ray Lewis from Philadelphia, that the retired police chief.
Oh, yeah.
That has kind of switched sides and has come out against all this stuff. I think there's a big potential for that, and as we were mentioning earlier about all of this police violence stuff, not only here in LA, or not here just in Southern California for Ezell Ford, but the protests continue to go on. In fact, there was a girls basketball team in Northern California that were going to wear a I Can't Breathe shirt in this tournament, and all of a sudden this sheriff's association is trying to tell them, oh, you guys can't wear those shirts, it's a safety violation or whatever. So we're seeing like this I don't want to call it a catalyst, but we're seeing this critical mass being reached right now, as far as all these people, whether they're athletes or young people, celebrities, and any celebrity that is kind of going against it, they're getting like vilified online. Like Iggy Azalea or whatever her name is, she got completely destroyed on her Twitter and social media profiles because she was, speaking out against protesters. And by all means, she has the freedom to speak out, but at the same time, she also has the freedom to take the criticism that comes along with speaking out. And so that's
a true police stater. That's a true police. Like Australia is the police. If you want to see what they want to turn the U.S. into, go over
there. Yeah, man, and so we're seeing this critical mass get reached. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more people that you wouldn't think come over to our side. They will, and more people in the military as this police state gets bigger, and people start realizing. We had a caller a month and a half, 2 months ago, that was basically saying, he was in the military and he's witnessed some of this training that they're doing. They're planning on using against, American citizens. And it's bad enough that we're doing this stuff all over the world and that we're financing it in Mexico and in Syria and all over the place. But it's going to be used against us. And sooner or later, I think people get to this point where they are, just so fed up and they feel so hopeless that the only way out is fighting. You know, you corner a cat bad enough, and the only way it's going to go out is by going through you. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, I think, the situation people are being pushed in, and it's kind of, to me, it's kind of exciting, it's kind of scary, but I want to kind of shift gears here because it all kind of ties in with this 2016 battle, and more people. I just saw, I posted I shared a poll the other day that basically said Jeb Bush is pulling ahead for the 2016 Republican nomination. And obviously Hillary Clinton is the front runner for the Democrats, and we all know she's already picked to lose, and yeah, she's got to run. You know, this is her second time running for president. She's got to lose again, but she'll be able to win the third time around. But anyway, to me, I think that if this election actually does come down to Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, I think that is actually going to, in a weird way, in a horrible way, it's going to help this movement towards, you know, thinking that maybe there is something completely wrong with the way things are happening, the way the government works. Because I think people will see, if it is Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, people will see how much of a facade this really is, and how much of a monarchy it's become, and how much of an oligarchy it really is. You know, and I think that 2016 may be the time that the country finally sees something big happen. So we got, I don't know, not 2 years exactly, but a year and, you know, a good amount before I think we start seeing some really big stuff going on.
Unless the dollar collapses, and then they'll suspend the Constitution and we won't have an election.
Well, hopefully that's not the case. But I think even if the government were to try something that crazy, I think people would definitely, you know, wake up pretty quickly. Like Manny was saying, you'd be surprised how quickly people would react when they're under enough pressure, you know. And it really
and
does.
Then the question becomes, what do we do, though? Like, that's always what it's going to revolve around, is like, then where do we go? When they cut, like, food trucks off in the water and stuff, it's not going to be like Mexico, because people down there really know how to take care of each other. Here, it's going to be the infighting they expect, you know what I mean? So how do we preemptively cut that off, knowing what we know?
Well, it's to me, it's this idea of just building, man, agorism, right? It's working our way, like we were just talking about, with these apps that are going to make that we need to make the police irrelevant. It's ideas like that. It's ways of coming up with food. I just saw we're going to be posting an article tomorrow on these. What they're doing is they're turning swimming pools, like old swimming pools, into these biodome type things where people are getting like all their food that they need out of these old swimming pools converted into aquaponic systems, right?
Awesome.
So you know, ideas like that, energy cooperatives and stuff like that. I mean, that's the direction that we got to go, because as Manny was saying with Mexico, they're cutting off the water to this town. What is it, a town or a state? You know, that could easily be done here, and it's already being done in Detroit. So we've got to build our way out of these messes that have been created by the government most times. Because
that's laughable in Detroit. I mean, they're sitting on top of the most fresh water anyway.
They're on the Great Lakes, the largest fresh body of water in the world, pretty much. So, and then you got to keep in mind that Detroit was artificially built up by the government, and the way that they subsidized Ford, GM, and Dodge and all that stuff for the longest time. Yep. And so, you know, Detroit was a bubble that was created in many ways by the government. And now the people that built it, and the people that and then got oppressed by it, are now the ones getting the short end of the stick, and now they're getting their water cut off. You know, it's absolute insanity.
What happens when Silicon Valley bursts?
That's a scary thought, man. I think it's coming soon. I was just actually reading an article right before the show started that one of the stock exchange, I think it was NASDAQ, is about to finally reach the point that it was right before the dot-com bubble blew up. And I think we're definitely in a new dot-com bubble. Don't get me wrong, the internet is worth a lot of money, like Facebook and stuff like that. Stuff is worth billions of dollars.
Like a tech bubble.
Yeah, but it's definitely I think we are reaching a tech bubble in a way, and the stock market going through the roof is crazy. and this all the oil price is way below, like the oil is like below what it costs to produce at this point. I mean, it's just crazy manipulation, man, and they're just
It's economic warfare.
yeah, they're just greasing up the skids for more and more atrocities that these guys are committing, whether it's economic. I mean, we haven't even talked about this yet. This whole North Korea hack. And the more and more time goes on, the more people are realizing the truth. And the truth is that North Korea did not hack Sony. It wasn't North Korea. No, it wasn't North Korea.
They don't have the technological ability to hack into Sony.
And from the very beginning, it's been known that this hacker group called Guardians of Peace are the ones that hack Sony. You know, and despite this fact, the FBI came out and denounced North Korea for it. And then, as we reported exclusively on the anti-media last week, not only that, but then we went and started knocking out North Korea's internet. And then, what was it, yesterday when North Korean leader said something about Obama, 30 minutes later their internet gets knocked offline again. I mean, it's just like it's like completely obvious, man, that we're waging this.
And their nuclear reactor now has Stuxnet in it. I don't know if you knew that, but it's basically one keystroke from going critical, and it powers Pyongyang. So once we hit that, then it's on. Then they'll cross the southern divide, and it'll be the Korean War again.
Yeah, the nukes are facing this way.
Yeah, well, they can reach the West Coast again. Like I said, get away from the coast.
Yeah,
and you know. These guys.
You know what's so crazy, Nathan Davey? You know what's so crazy to me when you have this lady? I mean, I'm looking at a case. You know, you're talking about some stupid laws, right? First, they tell her to save water. You know that you shouldn't be watering your grass on certain days. Now she gets a ticket because her grass is dry, and so luckily this attorney took her case pro bono and won the case. But the point is that, wait a minute, first you tell her to save water, and now you're telling her that her grass is dead, so now you give her a ticket. I don't understand that. That's her own backyard or front yard or whatever. I don't get those.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, it's like a twisted circle of horrible laws and bad politicians and fake narratives and stuff like that. And I guess to a lot of people, it's really apparent. You know, we see this crap and we see it playing out, and we're like, oh, here's a bunch of more theater. You know, just like this whole thing with North Korea. I mean, it turns out it was like more or less a huge Sony PR stunt. But then the U.S. government decided to go ahead and use it as a false flag and give it an excuse to knock out North Korea's internet and then maybe infect their nuclear reactors with Stuxnet, which is the virus that the U.S. and the Mossad created to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, cyber attack, to knock their nuclear refineries off.
The centrifuges spin so fast that they crash.
Yeah, it physically causes centrifuges to knock themselves offline. And so, I mean, we're committing, like you said, I mean, these reactors power their biggest city in North Korea. So we're sitting here, we got this hack attack, which was done by this hacking group. We blamed it on North Korea, even though all the experts that have come out and say, oh no, there's no way in hell that North Korea could have done it. And it's almost certain that it was done by an insider that leaked all these files. You know what I'm saying? And then
someone with an axe to grind.
So they use this as a total false flag to go start messing around with and stirring up the pot over in Korea. I mean, this is a horrible idea, and it's all, if you ask me, it's all part of this containment policy that they got going on. I mean, Obama talked about having this pivot to Asia, and then we see this foreign policy going on in Ukraine and Syria, and now in North Korea. I mean, we're containing, we're basically trying to contain the Reds again. It's like a communist containment all over again, Cold War 2.0, except this time, I mean, there's a lot more variables that are going into this equation. And the U.S. is a lot weaker than it was back during the height of the Cold War. We used to be a powerhouse. Now we're
Europe's
bankrupted.
not supporting us.
Now we're a monetarily bankrupted nation and a morally bankrupted nation. So, I mean, the Cold War effect isn't going to have the same luster, man. And people are just so weary of all these wars. We've been at war for so effing long. People are just wary of it. People aren't going to support that crap, dude. I don't know what these guys are thinking, trying to hype up this Cold War, restarting the Cold War and stuff. I don't know what these politicians are thinking, man. It's horrible. Horrible idea.
Well, I suppose they think that if we go to war against all our biggest debtors, that the debt's wiped, right? And then the economy's fixed magically.
Sounds like
what I'm driving at, man. They're trying to antagonize people that we owe money to, a lot more money than you could ever imagine. And they want it in gold. So if we can get them to fight us for Korea, well, the debt's gone.
Yeah, and it's a scary prospect, and it's all caused by, mismanagement by this huge federal government, more or less, that has put us into this situation once again. So we got oil still really low, man, and this is a total conundrum, I guess you could say, in the financial world, because if you look historically, what happened when last time we went into Iraq? Well, the oil prices went up, but now we're in Iraq, we're in Syria, and we're in all these countries, and the oil prices are like going way, through the floor. And a lot of people are trying to figure out what's going on.
ISIS is about to take Saudi Arabia's regime out. That's what's about to happen.
I couldn't believe I
don't know if you've heard. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard that, but we kind of double crossed Saudi Arabia, and we made a pact with Iran. We're going to have an agreement coming out in a couple months. They're going to stop weaponizing their nuclear stuff, and then we're just going to drop the sanctions. And Saudi Arabia didn't like that because they drove their oil prices down to try to hurt Iran and Russia. And now we signed a deal behind their back with Iran. So now, guess what? They just lost billions and billions, maybe even trillions of dollars. We don't know. And all that money, they're going to need it so bad because ISIS is right on their doorstep. So I don't know, man. I don't even know if they can afford to buy arms from us. They may go down. It may be a huge Arab winter.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me give you an update about what Raul Castro said. I was listening to his message, and he says he wants relationships with the United States, but not on their terms. It's got to be a win-win for both parties, or he's not willing to do nothing, jack. Basically, he said he's not going to be a puppet of the United States, and I believe him,
He'll have an accident soon.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, in theory, Obama's making the right move, normalizing ties with Cuba. But again, you got to remember we've been basically committing atrocities against Cuba since the 50s, and long before that, we went over there and conquered it, took it from the Spaniards and stuff like that a long time ago. But all the sanctions that we had on Cuba for so long, man, I think of how many people probably died because of them not being able to get a hold of medicines and not being able to get a hold of things that they needed because of our blockade or because of our boycott of Cuba. And it kind of goes back to what we did to Iraq, when we were starving them out and keeping medicine from them, and when it supposedly killed 500,000 Iraqi children. We were doing that same thing to Cuba for the longest time. We're still doing that same thing to North Korea. And to get down to the fact of the matter, I mean, North Korea is not a threat. I mean, what are they going to do? Bomb one place and then have their entire country wiped off the map? No. I mean, North Korea is just a product, and the reason why they're so anti-Western and why their regime is so extreme, they're just a product of the environment that we've been creating for them. We've been isolating them for so long.
Yeah. The Korean War was every bit as bad as the Vietnam War if you really get down to it. I mean, we killed millions and millions of their people with air raids, dude. So they see us, almost in an evil light.
Yeah, and I don't exactly blame them, and it's the same thing same goes for Iran, and the reason why Iran has these off the wall leaders that are so extreme. Well, they're just a product of radicalization from our policies, man. And unfortunately, instead of looking to the root of all these things, the U.S. tends to try to beat these guys into submission. I you were talking about that deal that's being made, but we know the Republicans are historically anti-Iranian, and the Republicans are getting the majority in the Congress coming this in a very short time. I don't know if it happens on New Year's or if it happens a little bit after that, but the Republicans are going to be the majority in the Congress, man. And I've already seen some reports that say that they want to immediately start placing sanctions on Iran. So the Republicans coming into power, and then I guarantee you a Republican gets elected in 2016. I hate to say it. I hope that some independent actually wins or some anti-establishment candidate, but let's face it, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'd like to hope and say it would, but chances are we get this Republican president in 2016, and then all bets are off, man. These guys may want to start a war with Iran if it hasn't already started. They may want to start a war with North Korea if it hadn't already started by then. And they definitely want to go after Russia. They've been wanting to go after Russia for a long time. So all this politics playing the game and stuff, and obviously Obama, even with the democratically controlled Congress, was a total warmonger. And you got to think that when the Republicans sweep in, they're just going to be even worse as far as foreign policy and stuff. And, what sucks is that it's going to kill a lot of people, but at the same time, it's going to have more and more people here in the U.S. start realizing, okay, well, that isn't right. We shouldn't be going to war with Iran. There's no actual proof they had nuclear weapons that they were about to use on Israel like they told us it was. Just like this whole thing. I mean, it's just like this whole thing with it's just like this whole thing with Iraq and with Saddam Hussein. Now they said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He's going to use them against everybody. I mean, these are the same lies they're going to feed us for Iran. It's the same lies they tried to feed us about Assad a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And it's the same lie that they're feeding us about ISIS. I mean, there's been reports of ISIS getting weapons into nuclear weapons into Europe and all this crap. I mean, this is all just fabricated.
Well, who's arming them?
Exactly. So
you know what I mean? It's a big shell game, man. And like, if we do one thing, we can prevent a lot of things from happening. We have to bring all of our troops home. We have to make a political movement to make it really uncomfortable to have all these, wars of empire, and get them all home. Get every one of them back here defending what we are, and that's a continuity of culture, man. And then we can't be invaded, and then these dudes that are screwing up our economy and our government, these freaking shills, they'll be found out, man. If we bring our own guys home, there'll be enough pressure.
Yeah, that's what it's going to take is outing these bad actors. Because any system like we have, any system that's existed recently, all these empires, they've all been kind of formatted, organized the similar way with the same oligarch-style governing system. And it's been the downfall of all of them. And I was just, you guys know, I was just in Mexico a week and a half ago, and I got to go see the Mayan pyramids. But the one thing that people don't realize a lot of times is that the Mayan, the quote-unquote Mayan civilization, all the people that built all those pyramids and stuff, they had collapsed before the Spaniards even got there. I mean, when the Spaniards got to those pyramids and stuff, they were basically uninhabited. They weren't in use. Because in all these empires, no matter whether we're talking about from the U.S. with these old Native American empires, Mexico with the Aztecs and the Mayans, the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the British, now America. I mean, they've all had these same technical flaws, these same underlying issues where the people that are being governed over end up getting so far detached, so far removed from the leadership, so far removed from the decision-making process. Even if they did have these superficial things like voting where you felt like you had a voice and stuff, any intelligent thinking person, any working person that sees their money getting siphoned away from them through from the government taking it out of them, starts to realize eventually, sooner or later, like, oh damn, I'm being robbed, I'm not being represented, and they're doing horrible things with my resources. This has to end, and sooner or later, the U.S. empire has to reach that same point. It's a matter of.
We need to go back to a republic.
It's a matter of when, man. It's not a matter of if. Sooner or later, it's going to happen, So thank you guys for tuning in. Catch you tomorrow, 5 days a week, same time, ucy.tv.
All right, guys. Good night.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.